G'day, welcome to another CrazyLegs Formicarium build. So this build starts with a 400 by 200 by 100 hebel block, which I have cut into two slabs 50mm thick. With the bottom slab, I'm going to just make a general shape with a diamond saw. Once you have the general shape, and you're happy with that, I will go ahead and cut the top half into two. I'm going to make two separate mounds for this nest. Trace around the base to get the general shape and cut those out. These covers need to start out quite thick so that you can get a natural hump. When you take the bulk out. I'll show you how I do that here. What I want to do here is kind of slope the display forward. So I will give myself a little gauge at the front. And then with a little bit of water and this concrete slab, I will just grind a nice slope into it. Just having a quick check at my progress. You can see I'm almost at my gauge there, but you can still see that there's a line here where the face isn't flat. You need to keep going until that is completely flat. You can see we have a nice taper from the back to the front here. With that done, I'll put my covers on and I will hold them in place whilst I shape them down to make a seamless join. Once I've done that, I'm going to want to try and smooth off some of these saw marks, as well as take away and soften this sharp edge. I do that with water and a piece of off-cut hebel. With those done, I'll put them in position and trace around them, and then use a piece of off-cut hebel to smooth the base in to meet the covers. Also like to smooth and round that sharp edge along the base. Sharp edges are just prone to chipping, so you want to get rid of those. Next up, I'm marking 5mm in from the edge for the display screens. Going to use a router set at 6mm. That way it will accommodate a 4mm acrylic screen with 2mm clearance. It's a good idea to make a run around the perimeter. Then take out the bulk in the center. Let's get rid of some of this dust, but before we rinse down the nest itself, I will grab a piece of sandstone, which is harder than hebel, and use it to clean up the edges. Just before we rinse it off, I'm going to mark and route out the spots for the water pots. You want to keep it dry whilst routing, because if you wet the hebel, the router will tend to rub your marks away. You won't be able to see what you're doing. I'm going to put one in the center of each side. You want to route these out in 3 stages. My router has an 18mm bit, so I'm going to go 6mm, then 12mm, and then finish with the 18mm. I've put 2 marks to drill out for the vinyl tubing. Now you want to mark 5mm in from that edge. This will provide a shelf for the screens to rest on. You also want to leave a good amount of substrate around these holes for strength. I'll mark out a tunnel pattern. This is what I've come up with. And what I'm going to do is drill out these darkened areas to about 10mm deep and keep them relatively flat for now. You'd think you'd be able to use a router for this, but you just can't get it in there. I like to start with the wet rooms. Just work my way down to the channel that I routed earlier. So you can see I've just taken out these zones at about 10mm deep and kept them relatively flat. I'll show you how I do that real quickly. I start by drilling directly down with the drill, just to the desired depth. And then I switch over to this diamond core drill bit. Use that to flatten out the rough areas just by running it kind of back and forth across the area. It doesn't bite in as much as a drill bit. With that done, I'll just quickly do these other bits. So now I'm going to try and get a bit more 3-dimension with these chambers. But before I do that, I want to mark where the pot sits to give me a gauge or a line that I know I don't want to dig past. I don't want to dig any material beyond this line. So this is what I've come up with. So it's kind of a chambers within chambers type of look. Just makes it look more natural, almost as if the ants did it themselves. I'll go ahead and do the rest of those chambers just like this. And this is what it looks like. You might notice I've drilled a little bit too deep in that chamber there, but that can be filled in a little later when we do the grouting. I'm going to bridge the chambers with a small drill bit. You need to come in from both sides so that you don't dig too deep. I use a small drill bit because there's less chance of you accidentally breaking through any of your walls. I can now enlarge them by hand with this core drill bit. Here it is all rinsed off and finished. Just giving it a good inspection to make sure I haven't missed anything. Looks pretty good except for that point where I drilled too deep. Just got to drill and connect these two sides together. Need to drill the entrance, which will be over here. This side will have another port where you can extend the nest or connect your test tubes. Once I've drilled those out, I'm going to attach these two tube connectors. You could probably 3D print something like this if you have one. I'm going to fix them in with the epoxy putty called Knead It. Whilst I have the putty, put the covers on and attach 4 lugs to support the covers. That all done, it's time to grout it up. I'm going to use a technique called stippling, which is a sponge dipped in water, and then I dip it in the grout and dab it on like so. This creates a nice textured surface. I use a clay modeling tool to scratch the grout from around the covers. and very carefully remove the cover. Might just use a razor blade to slip under this cover so I don't disturb the grouting finish while it's still setting. Now I'm going to grout the internals with the same travertine colour. I apply it pretty liberally because you need to move quickly. And then I use a smaller brush with water to smooth it off. Just make sure you get all the grout out of those bridging areas. Have a quick inspection of how it came up. Now I need to assemble the water pots. Here they are. If you want to see how these are made in more detail, you can check some of my previous videos. Going to install these with the epoxy putty, using some river sand to decorate. Bases all epoxied in. And I've also epoxied around the vinyl tubing to keep that secure. Now I want to make a display for the top. I start by wetting down the hebel. Then I use tile glue to fix my decorations. Wetting down the hebel helps the tile glue not to dry too quickly. Now tile glue will stick to rocks very well, but it doesn't adhere to timber that well, so I will have to put some spot fixing of glue around the timber later to make sure it's secure. I'm just going to dab the glue on carefully and use the glue to adhere some river sand gravel to the surface. Just dab the glue out and simply sprinkle the rocks into the glue while it's still wet. After that sets and I've stuck down the timber, you can see that a lot of the glue is still visible through there where the river sand didn't quite adhere. That's fine because I'm going to coat the outside with a darker grout color, which will build up around the sand and help hold it in place. We'll also highlight the stippling we did earlier quite nicely. You can see some of that sand still coming off. I've also drilled a little hole here to clear the vinyl tubing. So I'll get that grouted and I'll show you what I mean. You can see the second layer of grout really sticks to that tile glue. It's built up around those rocks, which holds them nicely in place. And it also adds a nice highlighting to the travertine stippling we did earlier. So what I'm going to do now is coat this in wax, just a paraffin wax. That will bring out the colors even further and also give the nest a nice finish to the touch and protect it from getting dirty. The waxing done, I'm going to add these 1622 vinyl tubing. These are great to attach your 16mm test tubes into. They also make a good seal into your outworld. Give you a closer look at these waxed covers. You can see it brings out those colors really well. It also gives it a nice feel to the touch. Cut some acrylic screens. These will be fixed in with tack. For some finishing touches, I have added some greenery to the covers. Just some plastic plants, just to add a bit more colour. We've got some fake moss just here, and another bit of shrubbery over here. there it is. Thank you very much for sticking around. Supporting my work is as easy as liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Be sure to leave any comments or questions down below and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.